Our penultimate speaker, Lisa Linfield. So I had the pleasure of dinner with Lisa last night, as I said earlier about Sunil. I spent a little bit more time with Lisa yesterday. We drove, if you can call it that, from Kelvin Grove to the Radisson Red. She drove us in a hire car that she's never ever driven before. It was shift stick. We got there. We used Apple Maps, even though she tells me it's Google Maps. She has a big vision. She's got a big goal. Her target is to reach over 1 million women by the age of 50. We wanted to hear her story firsthand, so we invited her to speak today. Her talk is entitled 1 Million Women. Please welcome Lisa.
That went well. In the spirit of Kim's talk on vulnerability, I'm going to try, probably being the most vulnerable I've been. I am a recovering, overachieving, good little girl. And like all addictions, it's going to be with me for my whole life. And like all addictions, you need a very strong vision of what you want to be. Or not. Or where you want to be, man. So like all addictions, you need a strong vision of where you want to get to. And the human that I would like to be is a person who changes the world. Now, I created another speech for this event. And like all human beings, I want you to love my speech. I want you to walk away having learned something new, think differently about something, and think that I'm a phenomenal speaker. But that was the good little girl speech. And it by no means was a change the world kind of speech. So I'm going to attempt to be extremely vulnerable. In fact, I was just saying that I need to make a note to tell my family to watch this video because this is not a part of me they know about. And I also need to delete a few of the slides if it's going into the public domain. But I'd like you to journey with me and allow some grace in that it might not be a change the world kind of speech. It might not even be a good speech, but I'm hoping it's going to be a real speech. So one of the first questions I'm often asked is, why did you give up a 19-year corporate executive leadership career to become a financial advisor? I was working for a product provider at the time in life and investments. And at the age of 40, with twin 3-year-olds and an 8-year-old, I decided to go back to university. And I decided to study the part-time honors course in financial planning. The reason was that I'd been in a banking career for 16 years. And in that banking career and in that transition into this new industry, I wanted to learn more about the industry. And as all good little girls do, you go and do an entire honors degree with twin 3-year-olds and an 8-year-old and a full-time job. The challenge was, after every lesson, there was something that I could teach someone else. So I pick up the phone, I phone a friend who's going through a divorce, or someone who just had new kids and I knew wouldn't have a will, or something, and I'd share this knowledge with them. But like all good little girls, I had no intention of becoming a solo financial planner. I was going to be CEO of a major corporation, and I was on track to do that. All tick the box. The only problem was that I started to fall in love with what I was able to do to help others. At the end of my first year of study, I was organizing our annual strategy day, and there were about 300 people, all life and investments people. And my speech to my colleagues was entitled Why Every One of You Needs a Financial Advisor. So for that purpose, I developed an 18-question checklist. And this checklist was just the things I'd learned in my degree. It ranged from everyday budgeting, debt, all of that stuff, life investments. And the aim was that they'd fill it out and see that in fact they needed a financial plan. As I left the room, I saw that there were all these sheets sitting on the table, and the class at Alliston Lee decided to pick them up, build a quick spreadsheet, and analyze all the results. I was absolutely horrified. There were 5 outliers, but of the more than 80 people, they all scored between 1 and 5 out of 18 for financial readiness. They were all in the life and investment space. A little while later, one of the colleagues, we returned from the Christmas break, and one of my colleagues in the operations team called me aside, and he said to me that he and his wife had been through every single one of those questions. They had a will for the first time. They had an idea of how much money they needed to save in order to retire. And he leaned forward and he said to me, "We've had conversations that have changed our marriage. Things that we've never talked about, we talked about over this holiday." He said, that checklist has changed my life. I began to see that for the first time ever, I had knowledge, that my knowledge could change the lives of a human being. Now, I believe that we can be good at anything. A little bit of persistence, a little bit of a good teacher, a good coach, but you can be good at anything in life. To be great, you have to be passionate about it and have a natural aptitude. But to truly hum in that sweet spot of life, you need to be able to serve another human being. Why? Because we were created to live in community. And there's that sense of energy that only comes when you actually personally serve another human one-on-one. I was good. I might even have been great at my corporate career. But I had a deep hole that lacked the human interaction of helping another human being. So when it came to making the leap and becoming a financial advisor, I kind of got to a stage where I asked myself, how could I not give up 19 years of a corporate career? My greatest career achievement ever has been to teach a paralyzed woman to walk. You see, before I went into corporate, I was a physiotherapist. Mary had an autoimmune disease called systemic lupus erythematosus, or SLE. What happens is that the body shuts down its nervous system from the toes inwards. When I met Mary, she was in Baragwanath Hospital. And for those of you that haven't been, this is the marketing photo of Baragwanath Hospital. She was lying in a bed with the sides brought up that was effectively rendering her in a cot. And she had lost all nervous control, that she was in a nappy, because as the nervous systems come in, it starts to take your bladder and bowel function. Mary was exceptionally fortunate that she was responding well to a new treatment of a drug to treat SLE. But the problem was she'd been paralyzed for so long that her muscles had wasted away. Mary was a special human, and she was one of those people that crawled into your skin. And I knew that even if this treatment did work, those muscles would never move unless I got up and helped her. But I was a third-year student, and we only had 4-week rotations. That meant that I had 4 weeks to work with her. So every morning I got to Barra at 6:30 in the morning, bearing in mind that I had spent the whole night before studying, and I had to leave home before 6 a.m. to be there and tutor for an hour before our ward round started at 7:30. After the first week of working with Mary, and the drugs obviously working too, she was able to, for the first time ever, control her pelvic muscles, her pelvic floor, and gain control of her bladder and bowel. And she sat there, she couldn't move the rest of her body, and the tears just came down her cheek for the deepest pride, being able to restore that basic dignity of controlling herself. Mary and I worked together over the next 4 weeks, and each week we regained more and more and more of her control. And on the last day, I went to the ward, and the nurse came, and she wouldn't let me inside until everything was ready. And they blindfolded me, and I walked in, and on the other side of the ward was Mary, standing, the nurse behind for support. And she walked and took those first steps unaided for the first time in her life. By the time she got to me and we held each other tight, there was not a dry eye. The hardest of nurses were in tears because of the humbleness of a miracle of someone being able to regain their independence and their freedom. So it's a natural question, why if you're in a career that you can be good at, over time you could become great at, and you can change the lives of human beings, did I give up? This is the answer. I was 18 when I went to work in the townships of South Africa. In the early 90s, Mandela had been released, but then Carter and ANC were at war with each other. The third force came into being, and there was a brutality that I had never been exposed to in my sheltered private school life. What human beings can do to each other in the name of love, in the name of jealousy, and in the name of ideology astounded me. I'm a problem solver, but the scale of the people who came in and the under-resourcing that we felt, there was no way I could ever make a dent. I could not change this situation. We had no support emotionally to deal with what is a war zone type condition. The stories I could tell you would absolutely break you. I left physio because I was born to be in business. But I left an absolutely broken human being. This is a picture I have saved my entire life. It was hand painted for me by one of my very good friends. And you'll see that it is subtitled. It's in 2000 and it is subtitled Learning to Cry. I hadn't shed a tear in so many years because the only way as a human being that I could cope with what I saw was to shut down completely. The challenge was, for the 20 years after I left physio, I was never able to serve. I believe that we live in a world where each one of us were given gifts and talents that we are supposed to use to help others. Why? Because that is how a community flourishes best. I gave money, but I couldn't bring myself to go there. A friend of mine is a missionary. She serves in prisons, she serves in drug-addicted street kids, she serves in soup kitchens. And growing up with a strong Anglo-Saxon Protestant background, we're taught that all good little girls should be feeding the poor, helping the sick, doing all of those kind of things. But I could not take myself into that place of deep need and deep pain. When I became a financial advisor, I saw for the first time that I could deeply impact a human being's life. I agree with you. Besides the medical profession, I put this profession in a similar light. In my wealth management business and in Working Women's Wealth, I have a one-for-one policy. For every paying client that I have, I teach a domestic helper about money. When I first started, I had no clients because I neither had a sales pipeline, but I'd never even been in the industry. So I just used to teach them in the hope that at some stage my clients would catch up with the helpers. But these women are my joy. And we have so much fun as we learn about what are your attitudes to money? What are the assumptions that you are making as to who is going to pay for your retirement? One gogo, the youngsters say, well, my children will pay. And the gogo looks around and she says, I'm over 60 and I'm still paying for my children and waiting for them to get a job. And that's the reality. But they all laugh, they have fun, and we make maybe a slight impact in their lives. But part of the program is a give back program where I make them write down 3 lessons they've learned that they can teach to 3 people they have received. And so they must give that knowledge. And they're really excited about the commission, and often they will get hold of me again and tell me who they've taught. I became a financial advisor because for the first time in 20 years, I could see that I could fundamentally change the pathway of another human being. It might not be as visual as Mary was, but it is no less absolutely life-changing to be there for a person at their time of need. When I became a financial planner, I created a business in FSP called Southern Pride Women. The only problem was that my first 10 clients were men, receiving statements from Southern Pride Women. But 3 months afterwards, I'd started my business. I'd had some surgery and I was forced to be in bed. And it gave me the opportunity to think about this dilemma. It was understandable that I had a business of men because my first clients were all my colleagues. And having been in the corporate world, I was usually the only woman, or maybe one of 2 or 3, especially through my career. So it was natural that the men were my clients. But then I started thinking about this thing of high net worth individuals and realized that I was unable to fulfill my desire to change the world, to teach them the basics of money. They already had it. And for many of them, they did know the things that I wanted to teach. And so as I wrestled with this problem, I realized that in actual fact, I needed to have 2 businesses with 2 different visions. The one is to help families live the best life they possibly can with the money that they've invested. The other was to create a vehicle to teach 1 million women about money. Now, many people ask me, why did you set the goal of 1 million women? Why 1 million? I've been in corporate for 19 years, and the one thing I know is a lot about goal setting and human behavior when it comes to budgets, quarterly targets, target reviews, getting hit on the nose, Q3 forecasts, Q4 forecasts, Q0 forecasts. The one thing I know about targets is if you set an incremental target, you will get incremental behavior. If you set a big target, it will cause you to rethink your problem completely differently. So as I lay there in bed, I started to think about how would I teach 1 million people about money? filled out a spreadsheet. There was no way I was going to do it one-on-one. And so it started getting me to consider whole different means and mechanisms. And 6 weeks later, I launched a podcast of Working Women's Wealth. I'm a corporate babe. I don't know anything about podcasts. I had run marketing, I had marketing agencies work for me, but I didn't know anything about the technicalities of recording a podcast, let alone interviewing a human. My podcast alternates in different formats where one week I teach for 20 minutes, and the next week I interview amazing women. And I have interviewed some of the amazing financial planners in South Africa on my podcast. And someone came up to me and they said, please, how is it that you give a platform to your competitors? And it was the strangest question I could ever possibly imagine. As I see it, the world is about supply and demand. The demand for real, true financial planning is enormous. There are so few of us that even if every one of us was to activate our best effort possible, we couldn't even make a dent in this demand. So how could anybody see that anyone in this room, let alone the people who I interviewed in my podcast, would be my competitor? You see, the thing about my goal of teaching 1 million women about money is that would be what we call in strategy a goal. My vision is that one day, when I die, God will show me the faces of every single person impacted by the work I've done. The husband who was able to have life-saving surgery because his wife had listened to one of my podcasts and had an emergency fund set up. The little boy who was the first child ever in his family to go to university because his mom had been at one of my teaching sessions and had started saving for his education. These are two statistics that I believe, if we were in a corporate with our other professional colleagues, would be given to us as our KPIs. The one, 6%, we would have to own entirely. The other one, 62%, we co-own with our other colleagues. According to National Treasury, only 6% of us will be able to live the same standard of life after we retire as we do before. That means 94% of our friends out there are going to either lead a smaller life or be financially dependent on their children or live in poverty. That retirement gap is a challenge that in my mind is going to become a tsunami, because as these baby boomers, the first generation of defined contribution, start running out of money in about the next 10 years, that burden is going to be passed to their children. According to Stats SA, 62% of the children born in South Africa in 2017 were born without a father on their birth certificate. That number grows every year. That means that when this child is born, only one parent is taking responsibility for growing, nurturing, and educating them. They say it takes a village to raise a child. And that is why we, together with every other profession out there, has to draw alongside these single moms and help them learn how to make money, how to invest it, and how to protect it, so that we don't end up in a situation in 17 to 25 years' time when we have the tsunami of the old and the crisis of the young coming together. I became a financial advisor because I can make a dent in the world's problems. I may not be able to reach my target of 1 million women, but if I do, I know that I would have even made a slight dent in the situation. Now, I mentioned that I like a good spreadsheet. So I track how I'm doing against this target. I only include face-to-face because I can count it, measure it, and track it. So that's any speaking, that's any of my online training courses, that's anything that I can actually see physically. I'm about to hit 100 episodes on my podcast, and it's been listened to in 91 different countries. A woman in Bahrain has listened, a woman in China, one in Russia, Ecuador, the Philippines. There are women out there who are listening and hopefully learning something about money, because I got out from behind my desk and learned these skill sets. So even if I don't reach my goal of $1 million, the challenge that it's forced me to do and to overcome, the fear of failure, imposter syndrome, like nothing else. I had come from a successful corporate leadership there to absolutely no one, nothing, me, the pot plant, and my computer, and not one client. But I have a vision so big. Why? Because when I am with God up there, He will show me those places. So here's an idea. What if we employed the same strategy of give it, pay it forward for every person out there who either has a financial degree or teaches money, that they teach 3 people, just 3 people every year, that someone who is less privileged than themselves about money. It doesn't have to be earth-shattering, just something that you and I take for granted. And what if that was part of their collective professional development? I don't know how many there are in the world, but if the 180,000 CFPs at the end of 2018 were each to do it every year, 500,000 people around the world would have a piece of information that could change their life. And if I live for 40 years, that means that when I die, there will be 22 million other faces that God will show me, just because I chose, instead of saying the safe speech today, to say a speech that may change the way you think. So, this would be my challenge to you. Each one of you has a knowledge inside you that can change the lives of someone less fortunate than yourself. Each one of you can change the lives of someone less fortunate with that knowledge. Each one of us knows a home helper somewhere. And you can join with me to take accountability for these 2 problems, that 6% problem. Those kids who are going to grow up with no support. And we can also understand that each one of us have different things and different people that make us happy. I love to teach home helpers. Gugu Sadaki, one of our fellow CFPs, has just published 3 books aimed at teaching little girls how to save, how to share, and how to invest. So what happens if not only if we each teach 3 people, but if we come together as a community, and what happens if we support each other in the work that each of us learns how to do? So when Gugu released her book, I just liked and shared her posts. Why? Because someone else out there might be able to benefit from it. I've introduced her to people within my network. That sheet of 18 questions is now available on Working Women's Wealth. It's 16 now, but it's for free. And any one of you are welcome to it. And if you want, I'm absolutely happy to share with you the 3-hour program that I put together for domestic helpers. Why? Because we can change the world. Our knowledge changes life. Each one of us can change lives. And if we work together, we can make a dent in these 2 problems that are ours as a profession to own. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Lisa. That was inspiring. And thank you for being willing to be vulnerable. Lisa did actually have another presentation prepared, and she chose to go with the one that made her feel vulnerable. So thank you for that and for the huge effort you put in.